Hi everyone, this is Aki with another video under the 15 most common tax forms. So let's go to our form 7, which is form 1099 miscellaneous income. So many people received this form in the past when they were independent contractor or gig worker. But 2 years ago, the IRS actually started issuing a new form for non-employee compensation. That's the 1099 NEC, because there was a lot of confusion with some of the items that are listed on miscellaneous income and reporting, and so now they just separate completely. So let me show you the 1099 miscellaneous. Now it has the non-employee compensation box 1. In the past, it was actually listed in box 7 on 1099 miscellaneous, but that's no longer the case for the past 2 years. So for 2021 and 2020, that form, it has been redesigned. Now you have to be issued this form if you have received $10 in royalties or $600 in rents, prices, or other income. You might receive it even if you receive less, and you should receive it by January 31st. However, sometimes it can be delayed, so you should expect it if you had some kind of compensation, miscellaneous compensation. It might be coming later to you. Now, if you want more information, I'm just going to go over the main boxes, and so this I prepared with box by box instruction, kind of like a summary, so you don't have to go over the whole booklet on IRS website. However, this is just general information for a majority of cases, but there's always an exception, and there's always different situations which may not apply to you. So if you want more information, look at the link below to get the instructions from the IRS website. Now at the top, we have the payer. It could be a person, it could be an organization, employer, and so on. And then you have the TIN number, which is taxpayer identification number. It's kind of like a social for institution, organization, employers. However, it could be a social if it's a person that's paying you. And then you have your information. Now everything on this form, it's a dummy, it's an example that I use for Jane, and this is her address. Now it has the account number because maybe you were issued 1099 miscellaneous for different things from the same person or employer, and so on. So it will be listed here, so you want to double check that it's not duplicate. Maybe it's an additional thing that you have to report. Now the year, as I mentioned, it's here. It says miscellaneous information. In box 1 would be rents more than $600 for real estate, machine rental, public housing, other personal property, and it would go on Schedule E. So you see, information from this form, it can go on different schedules. Now, if you have royalty income in box 2, maybe you're selling a book and so on, but it could be also royalties from oil, gas, and mineral properties, or copyright, like I mentioned, patents. That would also go on Schedule E, and that would be listed in box 2. Now, box 3 could have other income. I mean, this is miscellaneous information for other income. So it could be like prizes, awards, taxable damages, Indian gaming profits. And this would actually go on Schedule 1, which is a supplemental schedule for 1040. And so if you do your tax preparation in the software, you just have to put that information in the software, and it will allocate it to the right forms. And you might have to provide additional information for these schedules, but it should flow directly. So it's not something you have to manually do unless you paper file, which I would discourage you from doing, because it's just consists of more errors and so on, and it's much slower to process. Now, box 4 could have withholdings. Now, that's really rare. It could have that situation, but rarely it does, but it could have that. So this would be like a prepayment of taxes on the rents or royalties. I mean, for small amounts, I haven't seen it, but maybe for very large amounts, it does happen. Now, Then they have some few boxes that are very specific, like fishing, boat proceeds, and so on. So I'm not going to go over that. It's kind of out of scope for this video. Now, box 6 could have payments of $600 or more for medical or healthcare services, and that would go on Schedule C, as well as the box 5 proceed that would also go on Schedule C, because that's considered kind of like a business. So Schedule E is more like rent, information, royalties, but Schedule C would be like assuming you have some kind of business or some kind of gig on a side and you have to report that income. And then there's some more specific situations. I mean, that's why you kind of have this miscellaneous form to list other possibilities that could be out there, other kind of income like crop insurance proceeds. These are really specific for farmers, and that could be linked to the Schedule F for farms. So this can have a lot of different information. However, majority of people will have box 1 or 2 or 3 filled out. Now, another one that we want to probably go through, box 13, excess compensation subject to 20% excise tax. So that's something could be applicable for people with higher income. And then you have state information, and that's also rarely filled out. There's rarely state tax withheld for average typical taxpayers. Like, again, it could apply to you, but for majority of people, these top boxes are the ones that you have to worry about, and you would have to create either Schedule E, C, or maybe F if you have any income here. So this kind of like information flows into the other schedules on your tax returns. So thanks so much for watching.